Now, in many weeks, we hope the listeners are tuned in to hear what Zach and I had to say. But this week, even we would agree that you probably want to hear more from our special guest, head coach Tim Polasek of defending FCS national champion North Dakota State. Coach, we're headed to the season. How you doing right now?
Yeah, good morning, guys. We're doing good. We're fairly healthy. We're really healthy, actually. And it's been a really physical camp. I've really appreciated the growth on the staff with some of our younger coaches. We have a good team. I don't know that we're, um, a great team today. It's going to be really important for North Dakota State to get better every week this year, and capitalize on all the opportunities early to improve.
Well, coach, you've had your program has had a lot of great teams. It's gotten to the point where it's almost national championship or bust each season. How do you deal with that pressure as a program?
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously there's some coaching cliches out there. Pressure's a privilege or whatever. Hey, I came back. A big part of the reason I came back, from the FBS or P4 levels because of the standards, the expectations. We had an event last night, with our support and fan day. All total must have been 2,000 people, but we had 800 people that were there to precisely talk about, Coach, how you're going to win the national championship again. And I think the one thing about it is I just hope everybody's willing to go through the journey together, that your fans are there with you through thick and thin, through the whole schedule, every game that's on your home schedule. Because when we've done that and when we've improved and we come together and we're tough in November, typically we've kind of positioned ourselves to be in some big moments, and then you either make the plays or you don't. So to answer your question, that's kind of our primary focus, is staying um, in the mode that we're not on top. We're not defending anything. We have to get back to the top of the mountain, compete, improve. Tough is at the forefront for us. Valuing and respecting each of our opponents, valuing each opportunity to get better is kind of where it all starts. But truthfully, as a head coach, I really like what our plan is this fall camp. I really like how much situational tough moments we've been in. The defense, has been just maybe a little bit ahead of the offense. But quite frankly, when it comes down to it, if you give your kids a chance to win games, I think you're doing a big portion of what the title is as a head coach or coaching period.
Coach, last year coming into the season, there were some people who questioned just your secondary because you had a lot of youth back there, a lot of young guys who were stepping into starting roles. Looking ahead to this year, that's that's projected to be one of the strongest units on the team. All those guys are back. There's a lot of guys that played key minutes last year. What's been your takeaway of the secondary's development throughout fall camp this year?
Yeah, it's cool. Good question. You know, I like typical NDSU. And what I mean that is, like, we usually do start every year this way. We've got concerns. We've got issues. We're no different than anybody else, and everybody's got, in this era, some people are trying to correct those issues with new guys through the portal. We're so fortunate, at North Dakota State, 88% of our team was recruited to be Bison. So last year there was questions because those guys were young and they were inexperienced. Cam Miller absolutely carved those guys up last fall camp. I mean, safeties were out of position, that he found the open guy, he made them pay. Well, the whole flip is going on for us this year. The secondary is disguising things. They're reacting, anticipating much better than we did a year ago, especially at the safety spot. We're covering we're covering better, period. At corner and at nickel, the safety spot. Our field linebacker has some length. And then offensively, it's a little bit like, okay, who's going to be the five up front? How well is the quarterback going to play on third and long? And so those guys in the secondary have done an unbelievable job of fall camp. So my voice is a little bit gone, guys. I apologize. It's just they've taken advantage of the reps they got last year. They're more experienced, and then obviously, in our program, they're bigger, stronger, and faster. And Devin Kleiman and Will Johnson do a great job coaching them. It's a strength of ours right now. but like anything, we got to stay healthy. I do like our overall depth, though. We're talking 4 to 5 deep at corner and or at safety. We're getting healthier at safety right now. So it's exciting to see the Wolfpack gelling and coming together and making some plays.
Coach mentioned Cam Miller. I mean, he led 2 national championship teams. I mean, just a great career at NDSU. We saw a lot of Cole Payton behind him, but at the same time, he ran the ball, 3 times as much as he passed it. Tell us about Cole as a passer and just how do your receivers, which is a great receiving core, adjust to a left-handed quarterback?
Well, the 3 seniors, obviously came in with Cole and have been around Cole. So they're definitely behind him and they're in his corner. Cole's one of our top 2 or 3 um, biggest, most explosive athletes on our football team. And I do feel like we have a very lean, fast team this year. And so for him to be in that category says a lot. Coach Roll um, really used him really well, as far as the +1 run game, get him in, make the defense have to defend that package. We have that. We've worked really hard the last, you know, I'd call it 35 practices, including spring ball, to just, develop the drop back pass game. And I can tell you today, Cole's capable in that realm. But if we were to just ask him just to do that, we would be shortchanging our offense. Now, I'm not a big believer that, like Jordan Lynch at Northern Illinois, just you run him 25 times a game. I don't like breaking equipment with the quarterback, one of our leaders. But when we do dial his number up, it's got to be efficient and very explosive plays. And so I like Cole's progress in the past game. I'm always really upfront and honest. We've been really challenging him, in gotta have it situations, 4th and 7, game on the line, a bunch of really tough 2-minute drills. And that's the part he continues to get better, but he doesn't have that library of experience that Cam had. Last year, guys, I think this is a really cool deal for you guys maybe to look into when you're talking about who's going to be good, who did they lose. But we were like 128 to 23 in the middle 8 last year of games. And a lot of times we said to Cam with 2 minutes left before half, hey, you just go. We're looking for 3, end the possession with a kick. We need 6. That kind of mindset. And Cam was outstanding in those 2-minute drills. And today I can comfortably tell you, we may have to look at that scenario just a little bit different with, his lack of game reps, until he gets that going. That's the little bit, not concern because of Cole, but that's the concern about game management, how we're going to project. He's a big armed kid. And we have some ability, in the perimeter. So hopefully we can take advantage of that, continue to use all 53 yards and all of our athletes, in space.
Unexpectedly losing Shamar or Marty Brown this spring, coach, but it gives a chance for Barika to step into a major starting role and a major contributing role where he had 700 rushing yards last year. How has he thrived getting the majority of the carries now, and who are some of the young guys that have impressed you during fall camp that are going to be necessary depth throughout the season at running back?
I hope the running back group has my back along with the old lines. I mean, I really do believe we're better. We're better as a group. We can play 5 guys, and I think 3 of the guys that we didn't have last year, are more explosive. Has topped out at 21 miles per hour, for us in practice already this year. He looks much more decisive. He's mature. He came away with a ton of leadership council votes, for us. I mean, just a bunch of votes from the team. The guys love him. He's on the poster. I'm not a head coach that wants to be on the 2025 poster. It's about our players. And he's one of those 4 guys. But you look at a true freshman in Miles Mitchell, who's been here since January. He finds all the right spots. He's got really good instincts, natural ball carrier, catches it clean. And then we added DJ Scott from Kennesaw State, with their offense, it's a boatload of good running backs. And DJ didn't get much of a chance. And Sam O'Jerry, our backs coach, had recruited him before, and he's been impressive. I'm not sure that he's not number 2 right now. We're starting jobs are filling up. Roles are being defined as we speak. So between those two guys, it's been neat to see that group come together, and that's a new punch. Barika's totally capable of being one of the top 2 or 3, 4 guys in the league for sure. We wanna not highlight him, but we want to have a guy that we highlight, a guy that carries it 18 to 20 times, and Barika will be in that role as we get into crunch time during the season. And Owen Johnson was a good player for us 2 years ago, special teams, as a running back, and he went through an awful knee injury. He's back full speed now. And so he provides a guy that can be a pass protector, a guy out of the backfield. We really like him. And then Cortez LeGrand transferred in from Minnesota, and I recruited him when I was at Wyoming. The staff previous year recruited him, and he's got some real, he can trigger and he can go. So when you look at 5 guys in the group, I mean, we are deeper at that position than we were a year ago. Losing Marty, I don't talk about the transfers that leave a lot. Marty means a lot to me. His situation and his family situation made it really difficult for him to stay, and, wish him the best. Like all things, I really do truly believe Marty should have stayed year 1 here and learned how to be a football player, learn the core values of this program, give a kid like that. But we're moving on, and Marty's in the past, and I like the group a lot.
Your program shared the Missouri Valley title with South Dakota and South Dakota State last year, and they have new coaches this year. You stepped into the role last year with the Bison. Even though you had been in the program, in the past, how do you find that happy medium in your first season where you're putting your own stamp on the program, but sort of letting maybe the senior groups or players returning, have a feel and a sense that they're involved in what's going on as well?
Well, I think you always stay true to who you are, as a person. That was very important to building and cultivating trust to get those 25 seniors last year to stay, right? I think once they heard my story from me, that I bleed green and yellow, and that I slept on the locker room floor here for my first 4 or 5 months. I'm not saying it was easy, but all of a sudden you're captivating the crowd, and then you make some phone calls. And Chris Kleiman, gave me some really good advice. Tim, you're in that position for a reason. You've seen and you've gone and done some things, trust your instincts. And so all the changes that we made, you keep the leadership council involved. You ask for their viewpoints, and then you just go, right? And so any change that we did make to the program last year, I think was positive. I thought our staff did a really good job. I'll give you one example. So we practiced at 9:00 in the morning for years here, like everybody else. I wanted to always practice in camp when we play. So we practice at 1:30, and that's just been a great adjustment. Um, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I most certainly stay really true to the traditions that are laid down by our former players always. That's really imperative here at North Dakota State. Recruiting is not our lifeblood. Our former players are. That's number 1. Number 2, Craig Bowl laid down an unbelievable foundation of how we practice, how we segment our drill work and our team activities. And so none of that's changed. And in our recruiting philosophy, our coaches still do 98% of the evaluation, 98% of what we do is area recruiting. I mean, man, we're still running Coach Bowles' program here. It's just a different face in front, and then with some subtle changes here and there. But I think you always have to be mindful of trends and trying to stay ahead of trends. And then you have to be mindful of the climate within the landscape of college football. We're working really hard. We're working really hard to stay true to the traditional look of high school recruiting, high school development, develop and grow Bison, coach them as long as you physically possibly can, because this program gives more to our players than our players ever could give it.
So, Coach, my last question, I know we got to get you out of here. The defensive line is a unit I'm really intrigued by. Doing preseason previews. Obviously, Toby comes back after a big year. You guys add Jack and Luliano from UAlbany, but I think defensive tackle, even a guy like Keenan Wilson, I thought played really, really well in more of a reserve rotational role last year, could step up. How excited are you for this defensive line unit, and where do you see this unit ceiling next year?
You're right. We got to find out if we're as good as Eli Mozart. We got to find out if Cody Heisman's a loss. But I can tell you right now, Jackson Dutenheffer, for a fifth-year kid, a North Dakota kid, I mean, he is faster, he is stronger, he is more sudden, he's quicker, more explosive. Short area quickness is so improved, and he's got a chip on his shoulder still and an edge about him. He's one of our best scholars on campus, and he's a leader for us. I like Keenan Wilson, man. He has a spirit and an energy for our level. You don't compare guys to, Tristan Wirfs or Aaron Donald, but he's Aaron Donald-ish. He's 6'1.5", 285 lean now. He's a lean 285. His first step and his suddenness and his feel for the game has improved so much. Coach Gazen did a great job of developing those guys. And then Logan Larson, and in our program, this happens. There's a sophomore that plays a little bit. You're like, man, NDSU's deep. Who's that guy? Well, then it's his turn. And they got to go out there and do it. So those three, I'm so excited about. And then we have a battle going on for number 4 with Zach Vanderpool, who's a kid that came into our program about 6'4.5", 238. He's 276 now. And then, who's going to be number 5? Is it Obald, a transfer kid that chose our program from Iowa State? He's going to have a role, but, ultimately, what is that? And then we got a true freshman kid. I won't mention his name because I don't like bringing up true freshmen on any kind of broadcast because I don't know who's listening and all that stuff. But I like that group, but we're going to have to stay healthy there. Last year we could suffer a individual injury with any top 2, 3, 4, 5 guy, and we still had 4 guys. So health and staying healthy at that spot's going to be important. And in DN, I'm so excited for Toby and Nene. He's got man, when he's humming, he's as good. He's as big of a problem as I've been around, including AJ Epinesa. When I was at Iowa, or Anthony. Anthony, when I was at Iowa, who's still with Tampa Bay. I mean, those guys were just practice wreckers, right? And he has that ability. Across from him is Kelton McCaslin, who was injured last year, who's got his burst and spirit back. And then we got 4 more DNs, believe it or not, that are all kind of really good at what they do. They're not complete players, but you guys know at our level, man, if you can get anything out of 3, 4 other DNs outside of your top 2, you're pretty deep. So I like the depth, and I really like the edge that they're playing with. We've got a hardness about us and a competitive spirit right now on defense where we're in the gray area with physicality and some scuffles, and they're just not taking crap from anybody right now, and I like that.
Just one more question. You mentioned you remember the days where you might be sleeping on the floor 3, 4 months at a time as a young coach in the program. Take us back to your lumberjack days when you interviewed for the position with Coach Bowl and you were on the Division III level, but moonlighting as a lumberjack. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. My mom, excuse me, guys. My mom did such a great job of providing whatever I needed, but we didn't have a lot. In the community I'm from is Iowa, Wisconsin. There's actually been 2 or 3 guys from that area that have played in the NFL, a really highly competitive area. And then a bunch of people, that care about each other. And so I had some really good family friends that I got done with college. I did my student teaching, and I was like, there's just no way my approach or my energy or enthusiasm is going to fit in a high school game. I got to coach college football. So I went to UW Stevens Point. I knocked on the door. It's a team that I grew up watching because they were 20 minutes away. And I just told Coach Mish, a legend there, one of my mentors, hey, I'm going to coach for you and you're going to have to kick me out of here. I'm volunteering. Well, when you're volunteering at the Division III level, or, you're a low level part-time coach, you're not getting paid anything. And so you still need some money for gas. You need money. I was deferring my student loans. I was pushing that off. And so I logged, in the wintertime, I basically recruited 3 days a week, and then I logged 3 days a week. And man, did I learn a lot from not only logging, but working in the steel factory in the summers when I was in college, to make some money. But, yeah, it's funny. Coach Bull called me, at 5:00 on a Friday, and I answered the phone and, hey, what are you up to, Tim? I said, well, let's not get off on the wrong foot. I just finished logging. I cracked a bush light, coach. It's about -10 out here. It was somewhere in January or February. And he said, you're a football coach, aren't you? I said, yeah, I do that too, but I log on the side. I'm making money. And long story short, I came out on the interview on that Monday. And 2 weeks later, I was back in Fargo. But I was primarily the skid steer driver. So I pulled the trees onto the landing and then I cut the logs on the landing. I never was one of the guys that would cut trees down. And man, I'm from a pretty special place of highly competitive people that love each other. We're going through a process right now where our players and our leadership have to talk about why they play and who they honor. And, I got to share this with the team that, so you guys are the first guys to hear this, but I really do honor. I don't want to let anybody down from my hometown. I know I'm in a position that, it makes those guys proud and they're excited to be part of it. But I honor my whole community, anybody that ever gave me a chance to make a little extra money or coached me growing up or had an impact. And so that's a little bit about the logging. It's funny too, I didn't have enough money to get back out to Fargo. So the superintendent of the schools bought my driver. Well, he must have sent the driver to me as I was driving, because by the time I got here, 2 days later, the driver was delivered. And so I've had a lot of help and learned a lot of tough lessons in a blue collar community about how to be a worker. But those things also allowed me to see the big picture. Man, I didn't want to work in the steel mill and I did not want to be a logger for my life. I wanted to do something more than that. And so I woke up every day for the last 24 years. I haven't felt like I worked a day in my life.
Well, Coach Tim Polasek, we so appreciate spending time with you. We know North Dakota State's season begins on August 30th at the Citadel, embarking on potential back-to-back national titles. We wish you the best of luck, and we so appreciate the time you spent with us today.
Yeah, no, thanks for all the things you guys do and all the coverage. And if you ever need anything or any of our players, we're always available. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
You got it.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have more of the FCS.